Hi there, I'm Georgie Ainslie, and every week I talk to someone who is a performance person. They could be an athlete from the world of entertainment, business, or politics. They could even be an astronaut. The key link is, of course, that they all know how to perform at the top level, and they can teach us all a thing or two about how to do that in our own lives at whatever it is that we do. Performance People is available wherever you get your podcasts, or of course you can watch us on YouTube, where you can also subscribe, and please do. Dr. Megan Rossi is a gut health doctor. She founded the Gut Health Clinic in 2017 with a vision to empower everyone to take control of their health using the latest science. She's published over 50 scientific papers in peer-reviewed journals on prebiotics and probiotics, medical diets, plant-based diversity, food additives, and personalized nutrition technologies. When do we really need to start paying attention to this stuff?
Look, this is a really great question. And I guess, how long's the piece of string? They've actually done studies where they show that it's never too late to have some impact on, adding more of these super six into your diet and improving longevity.
How stressed you are on the basis of a month. And one was sort of every week, one was 1 to 2 weeks of the month. And I was like, I can't even think beyond every week. It's every day, maybe. And that's how most of us are living our lives. So how big a problem is that for our gut?
What I call the super six groups of plants. So Georgie, I'm going to put you on the spot and see,
Oh, no.
Do you know what the super six plant groups are?
Oh, you're going to show me right up now. So, Megan, it's lovely to have you on. I have a fundamental problem that every time I speak to an expert, for some reason or another, I get drawn to the larder and I always pick out the worst possible food choices ahead of speaking to an expert and a specialist in their field, in which case this is a gut health conversation. So now I feel eternally guilty for having had 2, not 1, but 2 dark chocolate festive Christmas trees. I'm really sorry, shortbread cookies this morning.
Georgie, you'll be happy to know that actually, if it's dark chocolate, it's got loads of these things called polyphenols, which actually feed our gut bacteria. And also, it's good for your skin health too. So I'm all for the dark chocolate. Don't feel guilty at all.
Oh, I love you already. This is going to be a good conversation. So I went on your website and had a little look about, and I did your test. I did your quiz, and I scored 9 out of 20. And I thought, well, that's terrible. That must be awful. And then I looked at my emails and I saw my email pop in from you guys. And it actually said, no, this is quite good, because 0 is good and 20 is bad, right? So 9, I thought, but it's not appalling. It was sort of an okay, but could try better. I mean, what tends to be where most people who jump onto your website, the gut health doctor, and have a look and do this quiz, where are most people placing themselves in that conversation?
You know what? You are actually beating most people. So good on you, Georgie. Most people, I would say, are probably more towards, the 13 onwards, towards the 20. And when we think about gut health, it's so important for everyone, right? It's not just people who've got those digestive symptoms. And that's essentially why I developed that test, because people are always like, well, I don't have gut issues, so therefore, I don't really care about gut health. And I'm like, well, you know what? The science is now showing that it's not just about those pesky gut symptoms, although 30% of people struggle with them. But, actually it's important for absolutely everyone, whether it's about, improving your immune support, your brain health, your skin health, your longevity, all of that sort of stuff we're now starting to realize is so, so important, linked to the gut.
Do you know, it's really interesting, because looking through the testimonials on your site, everything that refers to gut health, no one symptom is the same to another. And it's really interesting because it all comes from different places for people. So some people may have been suffering with IBS, some with reflux, some with, bowel irritability, some with eczema. I mean, a whole plethora of different conditions and problems that relate back to gut health. And I suppose, awareness wise, we're not that aware that a good gut health can offset, I suspect, a lot of those issues straight out the back, can't it?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think a lot of this nuances and the kind of the newness of gut health has come from this emergence of technology, where we'd now be able to understand that we have literally trillions of bacteria in our gut. And it's these trillions of bacteria. People may have heard the word the gut microbiome before. So that's just essentially a scientific name for this community. And this community is doing so much for us in terms of things like talking to our brain, talking to our skin and the inflammation skin that can link to things like eczema. So not just things like, the reflux and the IBS. And it's really been, I guess, that landmark scientific discovery that's now, I guess, raising the profile. So a lot of people are starting to hear a little bit more about gut health. But I think it's still very much early days where, we need to get that message out there that it isn't just those digestive symptoms. It really has these far-reaching benefits because these little microorganisms are like little superheroes. They are doing things like talking to our brain, talking to our liver, talking to all the other hormones in our body. So they are quite powerful.
Because it's such early days in the gut health discussion, like you say, there's so much rubbish out there online. I feel like there's plenty of fake news around gut health. I mean, what's the most ridiculous thing that you've read as a specialist in your field about gut health?
Oh, God, Georgie, I mean, there is a lot out there. I think one which a lot of people are getting tripped up on at the moment is all these poop tests available, or these like personalized microbiome tests, which, makes sense. You send your poop away, therefore they should be able to find out which bacteria you have and then which probiotic, the live bacteria supplement you need to have to then replenish the bacteria, or which food specifically you need to have. But the thing about these poop tests is actually it's still just such early days. So certainly, in my research job, so I work as a research fellow at King's College in London, we do collect stool samples and we do the analysis and we look at different types of bacteria. But it's still such early days that the vast majority of the bacteria and the different microorganisms, so, we talk about that we've got the gut bacteria, but actually we have like some fungi such as yeast and viruses and even some parasites living together in our gut. So it's not just the bacteria there. We've got all these other things. And actually, we haven't really been able to kind of learn too much about these other things. So these commercial tests, don't really give us that full picture. And therefore, although the theory sounds great, actually, they can kind of lead you down the wrong path. So I actually recommend not to go there with those tests yet. I think in 5 to 10 years, we'll have more, scientific, robust evidence to validate them. But I think, the commercialization is sadly ahead of the research at the moment when we come to those tests.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because I suppose most people dive on the latest technology advancements to sort of, self-diagnose. Is that what we're talking about here? It's a bit like when Google first came to light and everyone just, started planting in their medical symptoms to the search engine to find out and self-diagnose. Is it the same sort of thing that's happening here with gut health?
Yeah, it really is. It sounds really exciting. So people want to, have a go. But like I was highlighting before, identical bacteria can be good or bad depending on the environment. So just knowing you've got a certain type of bacteria in you is not going to tell you the functionality, so what it's actually doing in your gut. And similarly, two very different bacteria can actually perform some of the same functions in your body. So it just goes to show that these tests really aren't giving you that full picture. And there's so many people that, come to see me in clinic who have had these tests done and they've, been led to believe they've got things like candida overgrowth in their gut, because it's like, oh, look, that's really quite high. And then I have to explain to them, look, actually, a lot of people have got some candida in their gut, and that's, completely normal. These people can be thriving. They can even be, athletes and things like that. It's not necessarily a bad, family of microorganisms. So again, I think we just need to be really careful with these interpretations. And I do get it. We want to get really excited about it. So I don't want to burst people's kind of enthusiasm there, but I would direct that, to kind of more safer or, evidence-based kind of strategies around gut health.
Is it true the gut is 9 meters long?
Yeah, I know. It's coiled up in each and every one of us. Yeah. So it's this 9 meters, literally hollow tube that delivers that food from entry to exit. And I think, actually when we talk about what gut health is, it is that 9 meter long digestive tract. And we've known about the fact that obviously gut health and digestion go hand in hand. If you don't have a good gut lining, no matter what you put into your body, you're not going to get that food from your gut to be absorbed into your bloodstream to feed the rest of your body. So really, to get the most out of the food you're having, you need to have a good gut lining and therefore gut health. And then the other element is the fact that 70% of the immune system lives along that 9-meter digestive tract. And that's certainly why we see, going through COVID, but also with cold and flu, people who've got better gut health seem to have a more resilient immune system, because they live hand in hand. And then, we've known about those two factors for quite some time, the digestive element, the immune function. But then I guess it's, like I mentioned at the start, the microbiome component that's brought this new level of excitement. But I don't think we should overlook the fact that, the basics of digestion and our immune function, particularly as we're, going into winter, our gut is absolutely crucial for those elements as well.
Okay. Well, the next question is obviously like, how are we going to get it better? I mean, how disastrous a situation is the UK currently in, and how do each and every one of us improve our gut health situation? How do we make ourselves healthier?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there's two different camps of people, right? So those who actually have these gut distress symptoms at the moment. So, about 30% of people are struggling with things, whether it's the reflux, whether it's the bloating, whether it's the altered poops, the IBS sort of thing. So actually, my advice for those people is often different from my advice to the rest of the population who just want to improve things like the gut-brain connection or the gut hormone connection. So if you are actually suffering with the digestive symptom, I think it's important that you identify, what could be the underlying cause. Is it because actually you're super stressed up here and therefore the hundreds of millions of nerves that feed into your gut are literally strangling your gut, and therefore no matter what you eat, that's aggravating and therefore causing you symptoms there? Or actually, is there something else going on? Could you have undiagnosed celiac disease? And actually around 500,000 people in the UK are currently living with undiagnosed celiac disease because they see it, they get a bit of bloating, but they're like, you know what? It's a pesky gut symptom. I'm just going to pass that to a side. So, if you are getting symptoms, I do really recommend that you pop along to your GP, get a few things tested. They'll obviously make the decisions. But before you're seeing a GP, don't cut anything out of your diet. Actually, that's probably a top tip for anyone. A lot of people I see, cut out things like gluten in their diet before they have these tests with their GP, like celiac disease. But actually, that kind of makes these tests invalid if you cut out gluten before you actually have them. You need to have gluten in your diet, quite a lot of it actually, to have a valid diagnosis of celiac disease. So that's kind of that population. And then the rest of the people who are like, I actually don't really have any of those annoying gut symptoms, but I'm starting to hear that, my gut is really important for, reducing my risk of dementia and Parkinson's and all these other things that maybe run in your family, right? So for those people, really the key is adding more whole plants in your diet. Sounds really simple, but essentially plants is our gut microbes, favorite food group. And I'm not just talking about, the leafy greens. There's actually what I call the super six groups of plants. So, Georgie, I'm going to put you on the spot and see,
Oh, no.
Do you know what the super six plant groups are?
Oh, you're going to show me right up now. That 9 out of 20 score is going to become very evident now as to why it's not 0 out of 20. Okay, so off the top of my head, I would say nuts and seeds has to be one.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Look at you.
Okay, good. Look at me fly. Fruit, vegetables. Are they the same or another? Yeah. So 3 legumes.
No, they're their own group.
Legumes.
Yes.
Yeah. Grains.
Oh my God, you are now showing off.
Am I a star pupil?
Literally, you are. And then the sixth one, no one has ever gotten this. So
okay, hang on. So go back. Let's repeat the ones I have got. Which are the ones I have got? Fruit, vegetables,
oh my God, the
legumes,
pressure.
Nuts and seeds, whole grain, and eek. It's going to be really obvious, isn't it? Which is going to be really frustrating. It's going to be the most obvious one of all of them. I can't think. And we're going to be like out of time on the pod before I've got there.
Herbs and spices. So you know what?
Okay.
Yeah. Don't underestimate them. They're full of these amazing plant chemicals. So when we're thinking about plants, actually trying to get something from the Super Six most days where you can actually is really key to feeding the gut bacteria, because just like us, different types of bacteria or all the other microorganisms like different types of plants. So if you're having lots of plants, but literally you only keep to the same, you have your wheat, you have your broccoli, you have your cauliflower, and just really kind of narrow types, you're actually only going to feed a minority type of gut bacteria. But if you really broaden that out,
that's the problem with most people who shop online with their food orders, because we get really lazy about it. We just press reorder and we go again with exactly the same foods that arrived this time last week on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. And I think that is a modern society convenience issue, isn't it? We're not in the shop picking and choosing and being different about our food choices. So it is the way in which we live our lives fundamentally it is providing a shortcoming in our gut health story because of a lack of diversity.
You know what? You've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what we're seeing in the scientific literature, where we're really narrowing down the types of and diversity of the plants that we're having. And therefore that's narrowing down the types of gut bacteria we've got in our gut. And if you think about each different type of bacteria, they all have their own kind of superpowers. So you want as many different types of these microorganisms in you, because some of them produce the B vitamins, some of them help regulate estrogen, some of them, talk to our brain, all that sort of stuff. So you really need this diverse range of gut microbes, and therefore you need that range of plants to feed each of the different types to have this optimal gut health. But, Georgie, I get it. We all live very busy lives. But it's a case of things like, instead of just on your repeat order getting the pumpkin seeds, get your 3 seed mix. Instead of just getting your grain pasta, your wheat pasta, get the 4 grain mix. So it's just thinking at the, whenever you're doing online order, hey, why not just choose the diversity option? No extra cost all time. It's just changing your shopping patterns a little bit.
Yeah, we've just got to, like you say, adjust our lifestyle by a fraction, and we make such a big change. That's the other thing. So if I don't have any of those underlying problems that we're talking about that often people redress with good gut health, but I want to be proactive about my regime. I want to be proactive about my healthcare. So I'm not reactive and dealing with a problem that's already happened, but I'm future-proofing myself, if you like. When do we need to start doing that? When's the age to begin doing that? Because I heard and read somewhere that from the age of 27, the body starts to degenerate, which is not music to my ears, now being 46. But when do we really need to start paying attention to this stuff?
Look, this is a really great question. And I guess, how long's the piece of string? They've actually done studies where they show that it's never too late to have some impact on, adding more of these Super Six into your diet and improving longevity. So I think one of the study even looked at people who were like 70 or 80 years old, and they showed that adding more of these whole grains and these plants, the diversity into your diet, actually could extend your life by an extra 3 or so healthy years. Whereas if you did it, I think when you were in your 30s, then actually that was more like you could add a decade of healthy life. So, it's never too late to have some sort of benefit, but as early as possible, I would say, based on that study. It came out of Bergen University. It was a really interesting study, and showing, I think, for the first time, just how many extra healthy years we could be living, without having all these extra medications and being morbid and bedbound and all that sort of stuff, literally by changing what we're, nourishing and fertilizing, not just the human cells in our body, but the microbiome as well.
And I suspect also for people that are living with disease or are living with problems, maybe immunosuppressed or have some issue, actually good gut health, how much does that go to offsetting their conditions, so that, because they're going to be, or they may be, on medication anyway, but how much more can they help themselves just by making the right food choices?
Yeah, again, if we look at the literature, in terms of targeting your gut health, it's not only, about that prevention management. Obviously, it depends on different types of kind of compromised conditions that you're in. But like I certainly see in clinical practice, it can really have far-reaching benefits as an adjunct to medications that people are on. And, one example is for mental health. They did this amazing study. Some of my colleagues did it in Australia out of the Food and Mood Centre. And what they showed, they had people who had moderate severe depression and randomized half of them to getting this gut boosting diet. And, that was full of the super six. It wasn't plants only. And I think that's another point we should probably have a chat about. You don't need to go plants only to have good gut health. But the other group then just had this befriending type of counseling. So it was a really robust study because they had a diet group and then a control placebo sort of group. They followed each of the interventions, whichever they were randomized to, for 12 weeks. And they came back and reassessed their mental health. And they found in the diet group, it was 32% of them had a significant improvement in their depression scores, which would have classified them as no longer clinically depressed.
Wow.
In the control group, that was about 8%. And, when we look at the details of the study, everyone stayed on their antidepressant medication. So I think that's really important to highlight. If someone's on this, listening to the podcast, never ever go cold turkey.
Yeah.
But as an adjunct therapy, diet can have this really impressive, clinically meaningful benefit on your mental health. And certainly my own clinical practice, I've worked with some clients who, have been on antidepressant medications and they really wanted to come off it. They just didn't like being on it. So, I've worked with them to improve their gut health, and with their prescribing medic, their psychiatrist, gotten them off the antidepressants. Now, obviously, mental health is very complex and it's not, a case of gut health for everyone. But we now have, really quite clear, robust, unbiased studies showing that gut health, having these gut boosting diets really can have these clinically meaningful results in terms of management of some of these conditions.
You've written and published 50 odd scientifically, internationally peer-reviewed papers. What's been your most fascinating discovery, Megan? But what's been the thing that sort of stood out from everything that you've done and everything you've seen and everything you've researched that's really made you think, oh, this could change everything?